Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you all for joining. Today, we'll be presenting for the Chicago chapter. We have an interesting topic for you guys today, and we're going to talk about a little bit of generating metrics from transactions and a little bit of analytics. So let's get into that. I'll give a quick introduction here for everyone. So my name is Ariel Arguello. I work for EY. I've been in the practice here for a little over 7 years now, and over 6 years working in intelligent automation, leading some of the teams, and also I lead the relationship between UiPath and EY in the region. Josue, you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hello. Just 1 second. Thank you so much for joining. I am Josue Chinchilla from EY, Costa Rica. I am a technical background, a software engineer, but I have more than 5 years working with intelligent automation team, working in different solutions using RPA, using UiPath, a principal tool, working for different industries. And well, I work it as a developer, also as a support team leader, technical leader, and well, really happy to be here with you.
All right, and I can introduce myself really quickly. Hello, everyone. My name is Greg Jacobson. I am a manager in Protiviti's intelligent process automation practice. And I have 4 years of UiPath experience. Actually, I have an accounting background and decided to pursue what was once a hobby, writing macros and doing some automation in Excel to make it my full-time job, and made the switch to RPA and automation in UiPath. So I wanted to thank everyone for joining. I'm one of the Chicago chapter leads, and good luck, Jose and Ariel. And back to you guys.
Thanks. And I'm just going to introduce myself really quick. I'm Diana Gray. I'm the UiPath Community Marketing Manager, and I'm here to just help facilitate tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. All right, let's start this. I'm going to get into the nitty-gritty. Okay, so here's a quick look at our agenda. We're going to talk about metrics here, how to generate certain metrics, best practices as well, based on our experience in a few projects. We have a sample case that we want to show you guys as well for this, just to explain a little bit how to implement this type of solutions. We're going to be using APIs, also getting data from the databases where we collect all the information that we received. And we're also going to talk about a little bit of data presentation. We came up with like a simple or basic solution that can be scalable as well. So we're going to talk about that, and then a quick session for Q&A. All right. So real quick, the objective here is we want to introduce an alternative, some tools that we could say it's quote unquote out of the box. It's something that with best practices and with a good structure, we can start using analytics from the beginning, from the get-go, without having to have any big implementations or a lot of more expensive products, and I'll explain that a little bit later. The important here is to understand the importance of metrics, right? Sometimes when we're starting projects that are smaller in scale, that are pilots or something with a smaller base, and I'm talking about based on experience, right? Especially working with emerging markets. And when we start small, sometimes in my experience, in years of experience we've had here with projects, sometimes we think about the automation, we think about the process, but sometimes we don't think about the insights. the analytics that we're going to provide, how we're going to measure the value, right? The return of investment, not only from the business side, but also from the performance side, because we have to think about support and ongoing maintenance and so on, right? So those are things that we need to consider to have a bigger picture. We need to think about what's ahead, right? Not just the process or solution that we're providing at the moment. So yeah, we wanted to talk about this approach, provide a practical tool or a set of guidelines, actually, so that our team can reuse eventually or think about for future projects. Okay. And Diane, I believe some people are still in the lobby, so maybe you can let them in.
Yes, I'll take care of that. Sorry.
Thank you, no problem. As I was saying, who is this for and why is this necessary? Again, sometimes, and not just in what we've seen in emerging markets like in Latin America, I've seen this actually everywhere, and because I've been part of global implementations with bigger companies as well, and they want to start small, or sometimes they don't have the tools at the moment to start thinking about analytics or insights or anything like that. So when we're starting a project or a company is starting their RPA journeys, but are not prepared to scale up, and we still need to think about how we're going to design an analytic solution, or how we're going to come up with metrics to measure the success rate and other factors as well, not just that. So we've worked with companies, clients, projects, etc., where if the client doesn't have like something like Power BI or Tableau or ClickView or UiPath Insights, whatever solution, they're still undecided on how to scale up, and they still want to work with RPA, then they need to think about how we're going to implement this. So again, for those type of situations where you want to start small but still be able to escalate and scale up, and that's the mindset that we want to come up with. That's the type of solution that we want to provide, where if we don't know where we are, we can start right from the get-go. We can start with these best practices that can help us escalate this better. So yeah, thinking, even though we're starting small, we have to think big. So these are things that can being adjusted with the COE eventually, and when they want to scale up and they want to bring in other analytic tools, then yes, this is completely scalable. But for now, it's based on using tools that usually the companies already have, like Office, Power Query, and whatever UiPath offers us to extract that information as well. Okay. So some of the benefits and limitations for this type of solution here, it's easier to implement. I mean, as I was mentioning, we're using stuff that we already have with the free ReFramework in UiPath. We can add that more functionality into that. It follows best practices and provides guidelines for the development teams. So that's good. And again, we're using tools that the client already has. Excel, SQL, and UiPath, which should already be in place. And using a bot, the reports can run automatically. We can provide or create a process that already gets that information for us and run it. And the output can be an Excel with a type of dashboard and all the raw data, or at least the data that we need to provide so that our client sees value in what the process is doing, and also how we run that performance. Okay. And also one of the benefits, it's ready to scale up. This type of best practice or additions to the framework that we do, or whatever we want to implement here, is something that can be used to provide those same metrics in other tools. Eventually, if a client wants to go in and use UiPath Insights, if they already have Power BI, if they already have Tableau or whatever other tool they want to use, then it's the metrics are there. The information is already in place. It's in a database. We can get that information using multiple ways to extract it. And the important thing is that once we have those metrics, that raw data, we can recreate those dashboards in any tool of choice. So for this specific scenario that we're going to talk about, there are some limitations, of course, because we're using Excel here. So it's not suitable for large data situations. I mean, we're only going to be using stuff that can work in an Excel scale. And historic data that is used in these type of situations is stored in Excel files as well. So again, can be later stored in a database. I mean, it's just repurposing this, but for this specific scenario that we're working with, it's just for smaller scale situations. Even though if we implement something bigger, it's just a matter of managing the files, but still it's better, if we're going to scale up, it's better to use a database or even then later some big data solutions. But at least for now, for smaller projects, this is how we work. Security wise as well, we need to think about that. If we're going to go into larger scales, then that requires additional security and permissions to access all the external APIs and the database. So that's something to consider in this case. And if by any chance, any of the team or any of the people here want to implement this using the community edition, if you want to extract information from the APIs, there's a limit to the transactions. So that's something to consider, right? If you guys move into the standard edition, there's no limit. But for now, I mean, that's something to consider if somebody's starting with the community edition. All right, I'm gonna give the word to Josue. Go ahead.
Thank you, Ariel. Yeah, so, well, when we are creating the process, we have an SDD, we start doing with the developer, and we start with the dispatcher that will be in charge of load to queue. Then we have a performance, and in some cases we have a reporting bot, not all the cases, but when the reporting bot, usually we have the development to the end. And well, so what we want to talk here, and be free if you want to interrupt or if you have any questions, please let me know. Think about reporting in the design at the beginning, when we are doing business analysis, when we are loading data to the queue. Let's think about what is the key data that we should storage, right? We will have some different challenge. The first challenge will be, okay, let's think about data design, what we can save in our transactions. Second challenge will be where to storage. Transaction will be a great place to do it. Just be careful with sensitive data and ask to the business if it is right to have the information that we want to save in this place. And then having the correct data in the transaction, we have another challenge that will be how to extract this data. And this is something that we will talk later. Can we extract data using APIs? This is one good approach. Can we do it in this way? And finally, now we have data. Potentially this will be a JSON response in a body of the request. How can we present this data? How can we present this data to final users, right? So let's think about in the design of that beginning, what is the key values, not just for the business, also let's think about for support team and other clients, right? If you have some important calculation and potentially you have this in a log, let's think that you need to review this, right? So potentially you have 10 bots running, more than that, I don't know. And if you need to go by every single log and see the correct machine, find the value, this will take time, right? So if it is something that you can put in the transaction, this will save a lot of time. And then later I will provide you some guidelines that we will follow, and this will be very useful for us. So if we continue here in the presentation, So what we want to do here is this data analytics that we can extract from the transaction will be focused in the three different ways. For sure, we have transactions, but usually what is inside the transaction, what data we are storage, what can we do with this data, right? For sure, every single process will have an output, but let's think what is inside of this and what can we do with this data, right? And then for sure we have a support team that after development they will be in charge of the automations. So yes, we have an orchestrator. They can check the exception and all of this, but creating our custom tools could generate a specific exception path, location, show the errors, top errors, and all of this, and this will be very useful. And then we have a bot performance that we can check our progress by weekly or by day, by month, how is going our process, right? And this, it will be very useful, not just for hypercare stage. Let's think that we have a business meeting and we want to present results every single week, and this having the correct data to show and present the success rates, system rates will be very useful for everything. So at this point, I will do a pause here, and I will show you some small guidelines, very easy, not rocket science, that we can follow. So Ariel, can I start?
Yeah,
Sure.
go ahead and share your screen.
All right. So I prepared one guideline that later we can share with you, but I will just do like a really quick simple things that we can include every single time in our design, in our process, and that you can implement really easy. First thing will be sounds simple, use transaction reference. Sometimes we leave this empty, but try to generate a transaction reference that would be a unique key is possible. Try to add something that you will know, okay, this is for example the date at the end, something short but something that will be unique. It will be really easy to track for support team in something crash if we need more reference. Then when we are using transactions, we have some fields that we usually leave blank. One of them is output data. So what we can save in the output data is something that I mentioned before. If we have some specific calculation that for sure we can have it in the logs to track, to support and monitoring, but if we can include it in the output data, will be great. And I will show you in the sample case what we are including for in the output data that will be used later, not just for all informatics, also for if something crash, we can check really quick. For example, let's think about the transaction is following a specific scenario in the process. Well, this could be part of the output data and could provide more details about it. So this is the output data. And something that you will see here, for example, some status, if the bot is creating something successful, is sending the report successful, you can have some status that you can track later, some specific location for the reporting path by this transaction, some specific calculation. So same for exceptions, and here you will see that we usually have exception reason, and also we have details. The details usually will leave empty, right? So the suggestion is here, try to use details and provide more details for your exception. What details? Not just the exception message and all of this. You can provide, for example, who is the requester of this transaction. If it is related to a specific product, and then try to use exception categories. This will help you a lot. Every single time that we are doing a business exception, we have a throw that contains the exception message of the business exception, but we can include in the inner exceptions the exception category, and this will be very useful to understand what is the top category of issues, and it will be very useful for supporting and monitoring what is going weekly and all of this. For example, here, as well, we are adding the exception of the screenshot. So if the transaction fail, I just open the transaction and fail, go to the screenshot. That will be very straightforward, right? And this is the thing that I am talking about, create exception categories. You can use it there, and this is just an example of the sample case that we have: the business type, the exception category, and what will be the exception message. And the final user will be aware about, okay, this is this category, this is the message. Okay, I know what is happened. I know what is happened. So I will move to presentation, and let me put here. I will show you, I will try to explain a little bit about the sample case that we have. In this sample case, we are downloading reports for World Health Organization, 2 reports. One of them is about COVID cases. I don't want to talk about a lot of COVID, but this is just for example. This is COVID cases and also vaccines data. So we have one process that will be in charge just to load data to the queue. So we are trying to do extract data, add it to the queue, just simulating a simple business transactional process. So we will run this, and then we will add data to the queue. We are combining those reports, and we are adding the data into the queue. At this point, we are putting in practice all of the guidelines that we talked before about use unique reference, try to use output data for the success items, try to use exception categories. In this sample case, we are having intentional some random numbers that could generate us specific exceptions, right? So now that we have this, we have just a simple process that will be like a performance process that will take every single transaction that we have in the day in our queue, and we go and calculate the hash code of the reference. So this will be very straightforward, but the point here that we want to know to simulate is just a sample case. So here we will retrieve this hash result, and we will add it into the output data. And we are simulating that we are generating reports as an output, and well, in the background we are not seeing right now, but also some of the transaction is having business exception, system exceptions, and all of this, right? So now we have the first challenge about, we know what data we want to save into the specific location. We are storage this data in the transaction, right? But we have another challenge that will be, how can we extract this data? And then we will see how can we extract this data. For sure, you can go to Orchestrator every single time and download your transactions, and this will generate like Excel, output Excel. But here the idea, you have something automate that you can use every single time, and that will be very useful using by APIs, and then create some reports and more insights about it. So here you can see for success transaction, we are using outputs. In case of fails transaction, we have using the exception details with the exception categories and all of this information. Business exception will not contain a screenshot path, but well. So then I will show you, I will do a stop here. And I will want to talk a little bit about how can you go to UiPath orchestrator. In this case, we have a cloud version, but how can you connect to the different APIs? So the first thing that you should explore here, this is my own automation cloud version. Here I will show you in the orchestrator, we have some transaction about the current example that we run it before. Okay, so in queues, I'll just show you really quick how this look. So according with the design of the data that we do some analysis, what we are saving. And also this is something interesting. For example, here, you see intentional, we have country with country keyword at beginning. We have the region, Africa in lowercase, for example. Cases will be array separated by semicolon. So yes, we can storage also a data collection in the part of the specific data, but you cannot save a specific the collection directly, right? You should serialize the object, save it as plain text. You will see in this format. And if you need to work with this field, you can deserialize. How can we do that? Also, you can find here how can serialize in the guidelines, and the serialize would be really straightforward, really simple, but it is something that you could consider, right? All right, so now we know the data that we are storage here, some output data. I know the hash value per transaction, how many vaccines the country is using. Okay, I got all of this. Some important initial point here is to connect to the different APIs, you should know some values. In these values, let me show you. Will be, sorry, I don't like the news admin experience. I am more familiar with the old one. But here in your tenant, you have this arrow. You can click here, and in orchestrator, you will see this cloud icon that it is the API access, right? So checking the API access, you will see some details that are personal details that will be used to connect to the different APIs. So you will see the user key, organization ID, the name of the tenant, and the client ID that will be used to connect to the different APIs. Also, if you are using an external application that will connect with APIs, you can create external applications. You can add here, and this will generate for you the application ID, and depends if it is confidential application, also will generate app secret ID that you should use it. For example, if you want to connect with a web portal or something like that, that you will invoke your API. Okay, so something that you need to understand first before execute all of this, what can I do with the APIs, right? What can you do is every single operation that you usually do in the orchestrator, like create an asset, execute a job, check the data from the queue, trigger, see the process that you have. You can check all of this in this place, that it is the Swagger UI that contains all of the information about regarding the APIs that will be very useful. For this case, we are just using the information for retrieve data about transaction items and the get token. The get token that we'll be using to authenticate to the APIs. So how this looks is like we have some categories. And for example, if you are interested to know the, for example, jobs, So here you will see, oh, sorry, I click incorrect place. Jobs. Yeah, if you want to get the details for the jobs or all of this or post data, you can click here the documentation, and the documentation is really clear about what is the required fields, the different filter that you have, just the mandatory field that you should use here. And something useful is that if you have a success case, this also generate for you what could be your data to see the expected results and all of this. So here you can play a lot because we have a really thousand of of different APIs. But in case that you want to access this, also we want to share with you some guidelines that we created. And these guidelines will be how can we connect to the APIs, how can we access to the Swagger. In case that you are using Automation Cloud, this is the URL. Just change here your account logical name and tenant name that I showed you before, where exactly to extract. And yeah, so the first thing that I would want to show you really quick is how can we generate the token. If you want to do this using UiPath Studio, you can do it. The only consideration that you should have is you need to install the API activities packages that is available in the official repository of UiPath. So first thing, authentication. I will show you just a really quick example. How can we do the authentication? This is the endpoint, and the only thing that you should specify in your header is the tenant name. So you will see something about like this. In your header, just specify your content type as application JSON, your tenant name, and you should need in the body three things: the grant type that always will be refresh token, the client ID, and the user key that you can retrieve it for orchestrator admin accessing the API. What is the response of this? What is the response of this will be the access token that we should retrieve and use it later in the other APIs that if in case that we want to do it, right? So now that we have this also in the reference guidelines, you will see a code stage where we are implementing this. So if you want to do it by yourself, be free to do it. How can you retrieve this at the end? Will be in a response of the JSON. Here is an example of the body that we're using some variables to don't hard code the parameters. It could be an arguments. Some other good practices: check always your status code is 200. That means success response. And you should deserialize your JSON and extract the access token. So UiPath offers the deserialize JSON activity that will be you can use this in your response, and then you can access the specific keys of the JSON. For this example, we are looking for access token. Understand? Okay, yeah. And this will be really simple to do it, really fast and trustable. And in other API call, the only thing that you need to do is in your header section, you should include authorization. You should use this keyword barrier and then your access token. And that's all. You can use, for example, here, how can we retrieve the queue items? You can see the response to get a specific queue ID. And then having the specific ID, we can retrieve data from the queue. Something that Daryl mentioned before about the 1,000 limitation in this community version, we can use a skip. So we can retrieve all data from the cloud, but the only thing is we need to do different API calls to get one transaction to the to 1000, and then 1001 to the 2000, and do it like in a page way, right? But it will be possible. This is just a limitation of the cloud version. And here later in the guidelines, you will find in case that you are interested about how can we use another APIs. All right. So what we did is another sub-process for reporting that will be in charge of connecting to the API, use the token, and retrieve all data from the queue. And I will show you the example that we have about this. And it will be very simple, but this will be the feed for the other application or other reports that we want to create, right? This will be very simple. We'll see how many transactions we have, how many fail, how many successful, in case that we have in progress, abandoned, retrieve. All of the transaction detail will be here. So we can see here, find by reference, see the successful, the business type, business exception. In the reason, you will see here all the reason separate by pipes. And okay, we have the information. And something that we start looking here is the processing time. This also will be great to have it, because in case that some transactions start taking more time or something like that, you can do analysis about your bot performance in timing. All right. The only thing that you should contain is transaction data. We'll see in this way. So we are extracting data, and we'll see we have all of the collection of the data. But this is just the file that we will use it to present our report, right? So we can run this daily, we can run this weekly, and we can have the transactions by day or by week. But the major point here is what we can do extracting data from APIs. So we can create some more analytics, some more insights about it. So this Power Query file that we are looking right now, we have in Excel file, is just use the file before to get data, and we are doing some data transform to have a data a little bit clear. So for example, here, I don't know if you remember that we have a country with a country keyword at the beginning. So we are trying to clean that. We are creating one column for this. Do you remember region that was in lowercase? We can do some operation with the data. Some data that was before in a dictionary or in an array list, now is a little bit clear, and we can have it here in a different columns that is not more in an array, is not more in a dictionary. We are transform the data, and we can present this in a more readable for the users, have more details about every single field that we have in our transactions. You will see here. So what can we do with this data? Okay, so let's take a look of this data. We have here some, let's think about, we have a weekly meeting. Okay, so we want to present results by week, and you want to know how many transactions we are running by the bot, how many successful, how many fails you have about business exceptions, unexpected errors, what is the rates that we are having for success. We can see what is what is running the bot and what is the expected that we should run it, but actually we have some failure, right? So here is like a big picture about what is happening, right, with the bot success rates and all of this. And for example, in hypercare or some other stages will be very useful to understand week by week, because here, if I change a little bit the dates, this will be refreshed and see, okay, this changed a little bit. What is happened? We start having more exceptions, right? Why? Okay, this is the root cause. How can I know the root cause? Because do you remember that we talk about the importance about exception categories? Now we know what is our top exception category here, and this is for November. But also you can move by specific date with those sliders that you can create really simple with Excel. You can see the combination of the 2 months, or if you want to see a specific by day, by year, you can do all of this, right? And something useful as well that I suggest to add, for example, the requester. For example, this is my own ID. So I can see here that in my case, I am having a lot of API errors, invalid input data, UI element selector not found, all of this. So we can see by by user what is happening, right? And something good here is like if you know what is your error, you can take decisions about it, right? If we have more invalid input data this week, what happened with the incoming data? If the user is sending the request as we expect, what is going with that, right? If an API start having more incidents, we can note that and see what is the error, right? Same for selectors. Some specific selector is failing. Okay, why is failing? So potentially we need to add like retry scope or do more stuff about it. And this is something about support team. Okay, if I know here this is just for exceptions. Here I can see the exception message, the exception details, who is the requester of this. I can have more data, more insights to investigate. Where is the screenshot, all of this, and also the data associated with that. So this will be very useful for support team in case that we need to track what is the specific issue in the different application exceptions. We can have the exception message here. We know the date. It will be really easy to find it. We have all the data here. Okay, we know now that we can do some data. We can present some data for the business about how the bot is running and all of this, right? But what about the data that we are running, right? What can we do with this? And this is something interesting about it. Also, we can prepare charts and notes about, okay, how many cases we have per region. This is a specific case about COVID cases and vaccines type and how many deaths and all of this. But we can know, okay, how many cases that we have per region. I can do that. For example, go to Americas and see Costa Rica details, and I can see what is happening in Costa Rica according with the last report for World Health Organization. Also, I can filter, yes, by country, by region. I can select the period of time here when this happening and all of this, and this will be give us numbers that we can track in the slider by day, how many cases we are increasing, decreasing, all of this detail. We can take a look here, and this is just a sample case, but in your automation you can do same thing, and you will know how many products we are selling, what is the top issues, all of these things, right? All right, so also we have two reports. One is about COVID cases, and the other is about vaccines. All right, so in the vaccines, we are checking what type of vaccines we are using per country. So you can see here, this is the information of all of the countries, all of the regions. Those are all vaccines that the countries are using. For example, if I go to same Americas and find what we are using in Americas, we can see that potentially the vaccines that we are using in America will be different, like Western Pacific, right? And we can see, for example, by country, the Costa Rica, we have just 3 types of vaccines, but potentially Cuba have a totally different kind of vaccines, right? Same for the different countries. So this is just an example, but let's think about that. You can prepare data from your transaction and present using a Power. This is a Power Query, but if you prepare your data successfully in your transaction, then you extract your data in an API, you have the data to present, and this data to present could be a simple Power Query. You can add this insert into the SQL database or non-relational database. Or you can, if you have the resources and you have the people to do it, also you can create a Power BI dashboard or a web portal that could present this data in other format. In this case, we are just using a kind of tools that we usually have in our computers, and this is just like the results that we can have using some small guidelines in the transactions. I will do a stop here in case that you have specific comments, questions about it.
Thank you, Josue. I know that this is a pretty dense topic, and we covered a lot here. So yeah, just to summarize what we showed you guys here, we have a few guidelines and API references, so you can at least get started with something similar to this. Again, we created a bot that accesses all the information from the APIs. We also created these metrics using best practices within the ReFramework to generate that data in our queue and within Orchestrator. With the bot, it generates this data. It gives us an output in a raw data in Excel. We use this other one as a dashboard and as a summary to actually clean up and get the insights for what we need, either from the support side and to the business side. So again, this is something that is, you can duplicate this. This is replicable in other situations. Just imagine something like this, but in the retail industry, or like this one. This is a use case for healthcare, and this can be replicated in manufacturing, finance, et cetera, et cetera. It's just following the best practices guidelines, so that you can either do something small scale with Excel like this, or even replicate this using larger scale solutions where instead of outputting everything into Excel, you can output everything into a relational database, a non-relational database as well, and then extract that information in other types of reporting and dashboard solutions. So yes, thank you all. If you have any questions, comments, feel free.
Awesome. Great stuff, guys. Thank you so much. I'm gonna quickly drop my email in the chat. If you have any ideas for topics or any feedback that you would like to give us or any presenters, that would be much appreciated, because we're trying to, figure out what topics to do in the future, what we like, what we don't like. So any feedback at all would be very much appreciated.
And feel free to take yourselves off mute if you guys have any questions.
And Diane, the material that we have here, the guidelines and the references that we created,
Yes,
we can share that as well so that we can upload to the community chapter website. So we're going to share that with you guys so that with the recording, you can also download these references and the sample files.
yeah, I'm actually, if people are interested in those, if you could reach out to me, I will send them to you. I actually just have a place for the presentation on the download. So I will put my email address here.
Okay.
Just reach out to me, send me an email, tell me you'd like the information. So I'm going to give you a few minutes to grab that out of chat. Any questions while we wait? Well, I just want to thank Greg, who's the chapter leader for Chicago, for putting this together tonight, and Ariel and Jose for speaking. Great presentation. We're really looking forward to introducing new topics to you guys, and Ariel and Jose, we hope to have you back soon. So thank you, everybody.
Yeah,
Thanks, everyone.
Diane, Jacob, thank you for the time here and the space that you provided for us, and glad to help in any other future needs.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye,
Have a good
everyone.
day.
Thank you.